I've been wanting to avoid making a video on this for a while, but I think it's about time that I just rip the band-aid off. Hey, what's going on, guys? Snivypootis here. Welcome back to another video. And, well, we're talking about it finally. I know it's been a long time since like all this really initially started coming to light, you know, like pretty much like several months now. And even though I know the phrase "strike while the iron's hot" can be far from the truth, but I purposely didn't want to make a video on this at the time because of all the, you know, just negative energy around it, and I just really didn't want to jump on the bandwagon or anything like that, and yada yada yada. There's plenty of reasons, but you know, we're doing it now. Why? Because, well, I feel like that at this point it's kind of hard not to talk about it, because, you know, I mean, I don't think anyone's looking for Snivypootis of all people to comment or weigh in on the situation, but I figured I might as well throw in my 2 cents anyway, because I don't know what else to make a video on right now. So anyway, we're going to be talking about the current state of Dawntrail as of right now. And I know the expansion is pretty much still new, and it's been out for only a few months now. But there's just a lot of things that are just that I just kind of noticed over time that makes me worried for how the expansion is going to play out. Because, you know, we still have a lot of like potential content ahead of us, but, you know, even right now people are still pretty much doom and gloom, and a lot of people are, you know, just not even bothering anymore. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But we're gonna break this down into 3 categories: the initial launch, story reception, player quality, content drought, and then with my own personal thoughts as the end cap. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started.
Blue seas, clear skies.
So the initial launch of Dawntrail was pretty, it was kind of lukewarm. Obviously, there's always a general amount of hype around the new expansion. Like, everyone was like, you know, every time the new expansion drops, there's always going to be that general hype. That never like went away in this case either. There was people speculating like, oh my god, what job is the Warrior of Light right now? Like, is that Corsair? Oh my god, are we going to get like a ranged melee or something like that? You know, like, people were already speculating and, you know, seeing like the new characters and stuff, and just going off of like the little teaser quest that we got. It went from the like right before Dawntrail dropped, basically. People were trying to speculate how the story was going to play out. That never went away. So like up until the actual launch, the hype was pretty much standard. But as the game launched itself, it was pretty much how you expect it to be, you know, having to wait in queues for God knows how long, because you're sitting there in a long line with everyone else trying to get on the game at like 3 a.m. But, you know, eventually you get in there and you play, and, you know, like, of course, I was one of those people. I do it. I've done it since Endwalker, where a new expansion dropped, and I've been playing since Shads, but I didn't play when Shads came out. I played after Shads came out, and I did the same thing with Endwalker as I did with Dawntrail. Only thing with Dawntrail is that, unlike Endwalker, is that you're able to actually, you know, log out after logging back in. And what I mean by that is that, if for those who don't know or just don't remember, during the initial launch of Endwalker, you literally could not log out the game, otherwise you couldn't log back in, because it was so many people just like wanting to play the game and wanting to do stuff, do the content and do the story, all that stuff, that, you know, you literally, like, you basically had to like fight tooth and nail to keep your spot. And people would literally leave their PCs on for like days on end and have like auto clickers and stuff like that, just all sorts of ways to try and circumvent the AFK timer so that they could, you know, log back in, or I guess quote unquote log back in, and keep playing in case, you know, they had to step away or something. And, you know, it was a trying time, and like the second that you got logged out for any reason, like an internet outage, or I don't know, whatever method you're using didn't work, as soon as you got kicked out, you're basically stuck in a 20,000 plus queue. It was crazy, and it was like that for almost like a week and a half, I want to say, before it finally decided to die down. Now, I don't know if it was because they were more prepared and they had more servers this time around as to why Dawntrail was like so much more better with it, because like it didn't even like I never had to worry about that at all for Dawntrail. For Dawntrail, literally day one, like the second that I got I had to go to work that day, but I did get up early, but I had to go to work, and I got logged out while I was waiting. But when I got back, it was only like a 300 something queue, like not even 1,000. So that's a lot better. Because like in Endwalker, if that happened, I'd probably be waiting in about 10,000 queue. So I don't know if that's because they were just more prepared, because they just wanted to avoid a situation like that again, so they just had more servers and stuff like that, the whole people, or if it was just like a lack of people in general that made it feel a lot less of a headache to log back into the game after getting kicked out. Now I could go on and on about that, but the point is, it was a pain in the ass to try and log back in after getting kicked out in Walker. But Dawntrail was a lot better, so that was a plus. Didn't have to worry about literally getting kicked and having to wait almost 10-15 minutes just to log back into the game. And everybody was having a good time. It was like the arrows getting Pictomancer and Viper and all that stuff, yada yada. And the game's initial launch, like I'd say it went pretty well. All right, I don't think there was any hitches. Like there was a pretty noticeable bug with the gill. At least it hit me. I don't. Some people it didn't actually affect. Like I know for my partner, they didn't actually have any issues with that, but I did. But that is something that's kind of superficial. That's not really gonna affect your gameplay or anything. But everything else was pretty smooth. Didn't really have any server issues or anything like that. There was, of course, a lot of people, but even then, with the newly added features to like hide players as you interact with things, story wise, or get close to something story wise, it really alleviated that issue of like having 20-30 people crowding around an NPC that you need to talk to, and you're having to like basically sit through the crowd to click on one person. So a lot better this time around in that regard. But that's basically just the tip of the iceberg. So I think we're gonna have to go ahead and just head on to the next section.
No! Everything is lies. Everything is lies.
Now, you cannot talk about the state of Dawntrail but not talking about the story. Now, say what you will about the story. Now, before I go into like the details on all this, first of all, spoiler alert, obviously. Second of all, I cannot really say for sure if I hated it or loved it. I thought the story was pretty good all around. I don't think it definitely has some weak points and had some cheesy dialogue, but I honestly think that this was a pretty enjoyable experience, and I didn't really hate it or love it anyway. I thought it was all right. I didn't really lean too heavily towards either way. It's only the first like couple of quests, but I felt like that was pretty good in my opinion. But that is usually the point of contention for most people, because while some people only play the game for the story, and for a lot of people, this expansion, the story was like the weakest part of the expansion, and it continues to be so. And a lot of people blame that on Wolclamot, which is pretty much the main protagonist of the Dawntrail story, as far as we know. I mean, in the patch quest, it's uncertain if it's going to be following Wolclamot or going after you like before, but obviously, and once you've like gone through Dawntrail, after a certain point, you start to notice that instead of it so much being like basically the cameraman following you throughout all your adventures and all your struggles and all that stuff, it's not following you, it's following Wolclamot instead. Dawntrail is pretty much like just Wolclamot's story. It's not really your story, at least for the initial quest. For the patch quest, again, I can't always say for certain where that's going, but for the story quest, for sure, it is definitely about Wolclamot. It's not about you. And to some people, that can be a little bit annoying. I mean, because some people just like have that built-in main character syndrome where they just want to be the center of attention. They want to be the big guy, the guy that's doing all the heavy lifting, the guy that's saving the day all the time, the guy that's doing everything and being expected to be, basically the ultimate savior of the entire experience. That's basically what the Warrior of Light has been since pretty much ever up until this point. So it was a pretty jarring for some people to like go from being the center of attention to being like a side character essentially, and just being, and that you're basically playing backseat to Wilclamot's story. Wilclamot is the Warrior of Light, quote unquote, in this scenario, and you're just like some adventurer that she invited to her group, and you're just fighting alongside her. That's kind of how it goes. And some people didn't like that, but some people just didn't like Wilclamot as a character in general. And some can, there's a plenty of reasons, and one of which is just good old people just not liking the voice actor for reasons that I won't disclose because I don't want to get a huge debate in the comments. But like basically, if it's nothing like egregious in terms of why. But I mean, there's apparently some shady practices on their part, but I don't know for sure. Because I don't really know the full story behind all that. All I know for sure is that people just didn't like the voice actor in general, for at least the English voice actor. People thought that the other variations were fine, but people that really don't like the English voice actor for a lot of reasons. And they also just don't like Wilclamot as a character. So when you combine the two of those things, then you kind of have like a breeding for disaster, especially when that same character is front and center throughout your entire storyline. So like picture this, like you have a character that's basically just always there, and is always being brought up even when they're not in the scene, and they're basically just they're omnipresent throughout the story. No matter where, when, how, or why, they're always going to be there in one way, shape, or form. So, and people don't like that character. So like when you have a character that people just don't like, a lot of people don't like, but they're like gonna be throughout this whole story and presumably beyond the main story, then that's gonna drive a lot of issues for people, because they're gonna be like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to deal with this for the entire expansion, because and to some people, they don't even want to like don't do it at all. But like that's a whole different story. We're gonna get to that later. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like the story for Dawntrail at all, and you can see that as the Steam reviews even now are still mixed for Dawntrail. Unlike Unwalker and Shad's, where that favored a bit more better, Dawntrail, it's still like a pretty much mixed across the board, and a lot of people. And a lot of the negative reviews usually bring up Wilclamot as the focal point as to why they're giving said negative reviews and why it's mixed right now. And obviously there's been other reasons as well, but a lot of people, if you look at most of the negative reviews, a lot of them just say like, I don't like Wilclamot, and thumbs down. That's basically the gist of a lot of them. I'm not saying that that's not a valid reason to, downvote a game or thumbs down a game, but I'm just saying that's the majority of the reasons as to why people are hating on Dawntrail. But there's not the only reason, but it is one of the big reasons, because a lot of people, like I said, plays 14 for the story and stuff like that. So when the biggest draw of the game is the story, it kind of highlights all the other the sore points of the game as a whole, and then it kind of just like rots the game from inside out, and it really has been showing in this expansion. Even though we're not that deep into it yet, it's definitely a lot more apparent than people are willing to let on, and we're gonna get back to that in the next section. player quality in Dawntrail has been pretty much all over the place. Now, with Dawntrail in general, it's brought in a lot of new people. Like, not just counting the fact that Xbox is able to play as well. Dawntrail has attracted just a lot of newer players for a variety of reasons. Whether they, only ever had an Xbox Series X or S and they finally can play it, or they just, the game has gone like such a surge of popularity again that people are starting to get into it, and now that it's pretty much accessible in any form, hell, you're even going to get a mobile game soon. But I mean, even if it's not linked to it, it's still pretty close. But there's pretty much every major console can play 14 now, besides Switch. Rip Switch homies. But but in terms of that, it's brought in a host of players. Now, this is not going to be calling out any particular person, so I do apologize if I offended anybody. But when it comes to Dawntrail, a lot of the players have been hit or miss, pretty much. Where some players are pretty average. They get average damage, average healing, knowing what to do. There's going to be those players who are just pretty much actively sandbagging the entire party. And again, while it may not matter in normal content, like dungeons, no one gives a crap. Normal raids, no one cares. Trials, no one cares. Like, if someone's doing bad, okay, fine. That's not going to be a big deal. However, when I say player quality, I don't mean necessarily mechanical skill and knowing how to play the job. I mean attitude as well, because there's been plenty of people who have that "you don't pay my sub" mentality. You all know the meme. Like, we have plenty. It's been a lot of people, at least in my experience, it's been a lot of people who have been a little bit more on the snarky side. And I feel like part of that is because that they keep getting people who aren't playing at their best, and therefore it's making them a little bit more annoyed, to say the least, because they're having to deal with people who they believe aren't as good as they should be, so therefore they're taking out everybody else. And whether that's valid or not is up for debate. But even in extremes or savage, even if anyone has been trying to do anything in PF, or anyone who's done this current Savage tier in PF, they can tell you firsthand that players on average are usually more on the worst side. I feel like that you're always better off waiting to make a static and find groups for whatever, even if it's just something like extremes. It's always better to just find groups for that instead of trying to find PF, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to find at least 1 or 2 people in that PF that don't know what they're doing, and they breeze through the game pretty much with no issues. And Dawntrail has made hard content more accessible for people, so it's made a lot more players who don't fully understand their jobs and stuff, thinking I can do this now, and they go into it, and they may be able to get it clear, but they don't know how badly they're holding their team back by not playing as good as they can be. And that's if it's their first couple times, that's fine. But if you're in your 80th run of Zrolja and you're still dying to the same mechanic because you just haven't bothered to learn it, and you just rely on your teammates to pick you up in time before the next mechanic goes off, then that's a whole different story, and that's a whole different problem. You shouldn't be relying on your teammates to pick you up off the floor. You got to learn how to do the fight. But that being said, I'm not going to go into that too much because I'm saving it for the next section. But point is, players in Dawntrail have been wildly inconsistent in terms of skill levels, way more than ever. Most of the time you could breeze through any content in the game, no problem, but nowadays you're lucky if you can even get so much as less than 20 minutes in an expert nowadays. And again, normal content doesn't matter too much, obviously not, but I don't think anyone can really fault me too much for being if you're going to something like Savage, or something like that, and you're having to, melee LB3 or play selfish jobs just to compensate for your scholar that's pulling 8k damage, because in normal content you can get by that just fine. You can be doing like 0 damage and you can be fine, but in Savage, no. Or extremes maybe, but Savage, no, absolutely not. And not to mention the people who are going into something like Fru, which is even harder than that. And Fru may be easy, but it doesn't mean that it is actually easy to just go in there and clear it. You still have to know how to do the fight, know how to do the mechanics, know how to play your job at an optimal level, because the DPS checks in there are still tight, even if you have a Picto or not. And that is just how it's always going to be. And people are going in there with 715 eye level weapons and thinking that, okay, I can do this. I'm only 724, but I'm fine. It's maybe you can clear, but you're going to be completely destroying the party's experience. And even if you do clear, a lot of those DPS checks are going to be way tighter because you're going to be severely undergeared, because people may not think that the extra 6 eye levels matters, but the difference between having the extra 5k DPS can really show whenever you're constantly seeing enrage on parts where you shouldn't be seeing enrage on. But that's gonna tie into my next point.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Content quality in Dawntrail has been, let's say, not great so far. Now, I will say that the Arcadian is probably one of my favorite tiers to come out in recent times, only next to the Eden raids. Now, I may have never actually done the Eden raids in Savage. Besides E5, I did E5 once, and I did a little bit of E9. I did E9, E10, E11 as well. But either way, I really enjoyed the Arcadian raids. They were really fun. I thought the vibe was awesome. I thought the whole announcer bit was cool. I liked how the bosses all talked and stuff. It made it feel more lively. It made it feel more enjoyable whenever there's live, when they're talking and stuff. It makes it feel more fun to me, because especially whenever you're doing it in Party Finder, when you're not able to chat with friends or anything. So it kind of makes it feel a little bit more full of life, if that makes sense. Now, when I say that, and why be thinking okay, so why are you ripping on content quality? Well, that's kind of where my praises end, because the problem with today's content is that most of it is pretty, let's just say, not too hard to clear damage wise. The damage checks in every single fight that we've gotten in recent times has been somewhere between really lenient or just at the threshold of being hard but still pretty lenient, especially if you're bringing a Picto. A lot of the damage checks in this, you can literally clear a lot of the fights with multiple deaths and damage downs, no problem. You may see, the last mechanic, you might see Raining Cats, you might see Rotten Heart, you might see the last, or whatever it's called, the Tower Knockback in N3. You might see Sunrise, but you can still make it through it, you're not gonna be there's plenty of time for a lot of these fights to meet the DPS checks. So a lot of the times the only way you're gonna be dying to It Rage is if you have at least 10 to 15 deaths or something, or just everyone's just not playing at their optimal level. But even then, you can still get by with subpar DPS. No one has to be playing at their best. And it's kind of skewed people into thinking that it's kind of brings me back to my point where people are going into that content without fully understanding how difficult the content can actually be, because the fights are more mechanic based, and they're gonna be able to clear it by doing subpar damage. But if they try to if someone who's pulling 20k DPS on Red Mage decides to 28 DPS on Red Mage, and they decide to go into a hardcore group because they think that they're so good at Red Mage because they cleared all the fights, no problem. this tier, and then they go into that group as a red mage, and for some reason, I don't know, they don't check their logs or something, and then they're actively sandbagging the group because they're not pulling enough damage on red mage that they should be, but they're even though they're bis, and they think, oh no, I'm doing good though, like I have 20k DPS and I've cleared the whole savage tier, so why can't I do fruit? And it's like, yeah, you were to clear the savage tier, but how many deaths did you have? Did you get damage downs? Did you guys see enrage at all? Like, are you using your embolden at the right time? Are you sword comboing when you're supposed to? Are you potting? Like, you can't just go off of just, I cleared it, so that means that I can do anything. Like, obviously, anyone can do any content. I've always say I'm more than happy to have like stuff like ultimates or savage or extremes be a little bit more accessible, but not to the point where it's like giving people too much leniency, because like it still has to be punishing in a way to like make it so, okay, maybe I should like make my damage a little bit better because we're dying in range a lot, so I think I might need to step up my damage and optimize a little bit better. Like, we shouldn't, like, if people are getting by playing like pretty much bare minimum at their job, then they're gonna just think that's okay and keep going on their merry way, going into PS and stuff, and that's how you get these players who are pulling way less than the rest of the party, but still able to get by. And even then, like, no one really calls them out on it, obviously, because that's not really fair to them, and that's just going to cause more issues. But it still can be, especially if it's like a healer or a tank, it's a lot more noticeable. But if it's DPS, usually you don't really notice it a lot, because you can't really, you can't really tell if someone's doing bad damage. It's kind of, but you can definitely tell when someone's not playing their best. Rotation wise, especially like it's like there's the more obvious tells are more of just like their buff being in like 1 minute or something instead of 2 minutes, and that's without them dying, of course. But anyway, the content quality is also being affected by one big elephant in the room, second big elephant in the room, which is Pictomancer. And we've all had this discussion before. I know I just made a video about it, but I feel like Pictomancer is just in a permanent state of like, fuck you, I'm doing what I want. Because like, obviously they're not going to nerf it. If they wanted to, they would have done it by now. But like, the problem is that it's not just affecting current content, it's affecting old content as well, where every ultimate besides Yukab and Uwu, you can clear with a Picto way faster than any other job. And it's gotten so bad to where Picto is pretty much the top picked job in almost every single piece of hard content, whether it's extreme, savage, or I think even not even Criterion, because they don't count that anymore. But you know what I mean? Like, it's basically anywhere that Picto can be played in high-end content besides Ukab and Ubu. Picto is like the highest picked job by far, and it's not even close. And like the number of like logs for Pictomancers to like whatever the second most popular is insane. I'm pretty sure it's in the 100,000s by now, and that's not good. Because obviously there's going to be a job that's most popular, right? That's always how it's going to be. But when it's like when it's like 100,000 ratio to like 20 to 40,000, that's not good. Especially whenever considering the fact that like, again, expecting old content on top of new content, not just. So that the question is like, is Picto going to be dominating for entire expansion, or are they finally going to try and find a way to curb it so that it's not completely dicky on everything and everyone? Because like, let's be real, like a lot of the time if you want to have an easier time with DPS checks, you always bring a Pictomancer, and and while that's generally fine, it does kind of create that whole issue like I talked about in my last video, where you have people who are like, I know you like playing Black Mage a lot, but I really think we could use Picto for the raid buff and the burst damage. Like, so could you play Pictomancer, please? Like, if you're really, really good at Black Mage, but they ask you to play Pictomancer because they think it's going to be like an easy breezy way to kill everything, then then you're most likely going to be sandbagging on Pictomancer because you're sitting there trying to make sense of it while hoping that you're doing enough damage to get by, when in reality you're probably going to be doing less damage than if you just were to play the job you were good at. But yeah, it's really like Pictomancer existing simply just makes a lot of content trivial, to the point where like you can literally like pretty much do whatever you want as long as you bring a Pictomancer and you'll be fine. And while in some cases, yeah, is that too bad? No, but it can definitely make the game feel a lot more of like if that makes sense.
Patrick, air is not good. You're just being shy. Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine. I won't let you blow this. What kind of place is this?
Moving on to my second to last, a little bit more of a shorter section, content drought. Now, we all are no stranger to the patch cycle of Final Fantasy XIV. It's not quick. It's not, granted, they focus more on quality over quantity, but at what point does the quantity versus quality debate kind of lean towards for quantity? Because some people just want stuff to do. And while Yoshi P always did say in the past that it's okay to take breaks in 14, it's okay to play another game, let's be real. Like, nobody who plays 14 for the most part is going to be wanting to take a break from the game. Most people just want to play the game, and they want to do stuff, and they want to, have stuff to do. And while for the newer players, there's plenty of stuff for them to do, but for the veteran players, there's not so much. Like current players, you have like, if you have Savage, but most you have is Savage, Chaotic, or Ultimate, or the new Ultimate, and that's it, or Extremes. So basically all hard content, and you all know how hard content is based on how I talked about that in my player quality section. You don't really have a whole lot of leeway in terms of playing jobs that you want to play. You kind of just have to hope that, okay, stuff that you want to do. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. So you don't have a lot of options in terms of stuff you want to do. And so you have to go like, okay, so either I can do this, that's hard, or that's hard. And some people love doing hard content, and so they might be thriving, but once they've done once they've gotten their like gear and stuff and they cleared everything, then after that they don't have anything else, because the only thing you can do is either PvP, which is gross, or you can go and try and, I guess, do like something like Eureka or something like that, but like until the new relic comes out, and we don't even know how the relic's going to be for this expansion, because if it's anything like Endwalker, then it's going to be even worse off for Dawntrail, because a lot of people are complaining about lack of content. And whenever I know a lot of people shat on Basha, so I don't think they're ever going to do exploratory mission type stuff again, but I don't think we really need that. I think something like Heaven's Ward Relic would be really nice. That's what I think we need. But that being said, we don't really know exactly what they're going to do relic wise, but all we can really hope for is that it's something that's engaging and is something that keeps you on the game, so that people have something else to do in between the long patch cycles. But some people are just getting a little bit tired of the drip feed content type of thing that they've been doing for years now, and a part of that reason is that the story was so weak that they aren't really as excited for it. So now they're just wanting something else to do to distract themselves. But whenever they realize, oh wait, there's something to do, then it kind of just compounds onto that sort of like, where's the content? I want to do content. And it's like, yeah, like you can't really rush MMOs. MMOs are very taxing. They take a lot of time to do, a lot of time to develop. And I'm not defending the developers either, but I'm not gonna shame them either, because I'm not a game developer. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, I could very well be like, really in the wrong here, but like, I'm just saying, for those people who do want to have content now, like, I can't really blame them for saying that because, you know, they just want to be able to play the games they love, but they don't have anything to do because most of the stuff, if not all the stuff that they have done or can do is, you know, like takes a lot more leeway. Like you can't just like jump into Fru and start doing Fru. You have to find a group, you have to find a party that's good, you have to find a party that you vibe with, and blah 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 blah. So, you know, it's not exactly easy as like jumping in and doing the content.
No.
Last but not least, we have my personal thoughts. Now, this is what I think about the current state of the game and everything I've talked about, and pretty much like a rapid fire ballpark clip notes version. So I feel like the game is pretty fun still. I really enjoy Viper a lot, even though if I'm playing Sam right now. But I really enjoy the game as of right now. I haven't done the Chaotic Alliance raid yet, but I do plan to. I really enjoyed it. I had a bad experience with Fru because my group wasn't exactly the best at doing the content. So while I do like Fru, I feel like that, you know, I can't really particularly judge that part because my experience was soured in a way. But I'm still looking for a group but on that one. But anyway, I think the story was pretty good. Like I said earlier, I thought it was all right. I didn't think it didn't blow my socks off, but I did enjoy it a fair bit. It had some funny moments. I definitely felt the direction that they were taking it to was more inspired in a way. I don't really hate Okuma at all. I think that they're fine. Like I said, I don't hate them. I don't love them. They're kind of like the same how I feel about the story in general. They're fine. I don't really feel any particular way either way about them. But I think the players definitely could use a bit more teaching in game on how to do things, because I spoke about this in a video of mine in the past where I feel like the new player experience isn't really that great for most players, and even recently I had someone who like was trying to relearn the game again, and they didn't really know anything else going on because there's pretty much brand new to the game. But like, you know, the Hall of a Novice only tells you so much, and outside of that you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself, and you know, people aren't really doing that nowadays, so they rather just like be like, okay, I'll figure it out, and then they think they figured it out, but in reality they're playing their job completely wrong. So yeah, I feel like that, you know, the content itself, I do agree that it could be a little bit more challenging DPS wise. I feel like the mechanic heavy focus is honestly better because it makes the fights more interesting, and because like there's a lot more, even if the DPS check, it's because if you had a lot of intense mechanics on top of a tight DPS check, then that would be really annoying. I'm not gonna lie. But I do think that is a good balance, but I do also feel like that they should address the whole ulti situation with Picto and pretty much dominating every ultimate that's not Ukab or Ubu. And even Ukab Ubu is still pretty decent. So I have high hopes for the game, and high hope for this expansion. I have been enjoying it for the most part. But I do hope that they eventually look at everything and be like, hey, maybe we should try and shake things up and try and keep the game alive in a different way instead of trying to do what we think is best. Because, well, you know, it may have been worked with the past, maybe it might be time for something new. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this stuff. For those who watched to the end, anyway, do you agree with anything what I said? Do you disagree with anything I've said? Do you have your own things to add? Make sure to comment below and let me know what you guys think in the comments. I really love to discuss with you guys on this type of stuff because I like to see all your guys' thoughts. And I do read all the comments, obviously. So so please try not to be, you know, too harsh to me on any of my takes. Most of these are just my opinion and my observations. And again, I'm not trying to call out anybody by any of what I said, but I do genuinely hope that everyone's been having a good Dawntrail experience. And yeah, I will see you all later. Bye now.